Phoenix Down Radio is on the air.
Welcome, everybody, to Phoenix Down Radio, episode number 180. I'm your host, Klaus Nightbringer. Joining me is Seyrr Timono. Seyrr, how are you today?
Better now that I've actually eaten something. Have regular meals, kids.
Yes, food is good. We had very tasty food today as well. We made some butter chicken. Oh, it's
Nice.
so good. Over nice, perfectly cooked rice and some garlic naan bread.
That's one of those ones that's like always so much easier to make than I remember. Like,
Oh.
I'm not usually big on Indian food, but it's still pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, and it was perfectly spiced. It wasn't too spicy, but just had enough kick to, make your taste buds be alive, and you feel a little bit in your sinuses. So it's all good stuff.
Glorious.
And then now I am drinking a beer that I got last week at the beer festival that we attended. Oh my God, that was so much fun drinking beer at the Science Museum with a whole bunch of other drunk adults.
There's a lot of museums like that have usually evening activities aimed a bit more at adults. Because a lot of the stuff the museum has is fun for adults as well, but it often ends up being thought of as a kid's thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the Science Museum is there's a lot of adult things that adults can understand and appreciate there, but it was just really nice to see it in this type of context, and then have all your inhibitions taken away by copious amounts of alcohol.
Good times.
But the beer that I'm having now is it may take a little bit to get focused on the screen for those of you watching the video, but it is called Final Fantasy III. It is a double IPA with Phantasm. Now, what does that mean? Apparently, they add a little bit of this thing called Phantasm, which is made out of Sauvignon Blanc grape skins. So it gives an extra fruity flavor to the IPA, and it makes it a little bit of a hazy boy. But oh my God, I'm not an IPA fan. This is good.
Nice.
And I told them that, and I told them that we had a podcast. So they gave me this can. Like, you're only supposed to get little tasters of it. They gave me this whole freaking can.
Oh, dang. Okay. I know you mentioned they said they gave you the can, but I didn't realize that they were giving you stuff that was that small.
Yeah,
for it.
normally you get you have a little cup that you bring around, and you fill it up at the different places. You go, they gave me a freaking can. So shout out to Black Stack Brewing. Freaking bunch of awesome guys. I don't know if you listen to the show, but if you do, you make your Final Fantasy double IPA. Very good. Very good.
Given that they're naming a drink Final Fantasy, even if they have a roundabout way for justifying the title, they've got to have at least some flats of the series in there.
Hopefully, but it's good stuff. So give it a try if you like IPAs. What else have you been up to then, Seyrr?
Let's see. Well, we're already starting to prepare for summer learning at the library.
Ooh.
You got to start early on that stuff.
I suppose.
There's so many moving pieces, and this year we have a bit more of an idea of what to expect, so we can actually usefully get started early.
Very nice.
Which I am looking forward to, because I want to make sure that I can have a little bit of free time once we get to like around. Is it early, mid-July? I forget exactly when FanFest is supposed to be.
Late July.
Yeah,
Actually, the end of July.
We still haven't gotten much more news than that.
Nope, so definitely need to keep our eyes peeled on that, because I have a feeling that we're going to see something here in the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I mean,
running Criterion Dungeons with friends. Friend made me a full set of crafting gear after I brought them the materials, and that is melded now. So now I'm trying to figure out, like, so many carrot puddings. So many carrot puddings.
Have you guys started doing Savage stuff then?
You
had that discussion.
Yeah, we had the discussion. We're not quite sure we're geared enough for it, but we're going to go ahead and at least give it a try, especially since we have been, like the way Savage Criterion is done, you pretty much have to one-shot it with no deaths within a certain time limit. And we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, we're actually kind of managing that.
Okay.
This is maybe not that impossible.
Well, that's good to know.
Also, you only need to like clear it once or twice to get the loot rewards for it, unless you want a bunch of materia, I guess.
Is that the big thing for it? Is just mainly materia after you get the initial rewards?
So the thing for the savage ones, there's a furnishing, there is an earring, and then there's materia. There might also be something that drops from the chest, I don't know, but it really does feel a little more like a bragging rights type thing. I think there is also an achievement or title or something, but I'm not certain.
But the mount is only in the normal version, huh?
Oh yeah, the mount it drops in the normal version, and the current, if you buy it, is with the currency from the normal version.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I haven't been doing much in the game, but I did finally actually finish MSQ on Thursday of this week. Well, because I figured we needed to talk about, you know, the patch. I was thinking
and
maybe
there's a lot to talk about there.
I was thinking we might want to do, you know, finish off disc 4 this week, but and I thought, oh, that's right, we're not going to have a podcast in 2 weeks because I will be out at a charity event. So no podcast on the 25th, guys. Just be aware of that.
So we probably don't want to put this off another month.
Exactly. So we're going to today's discussion topic is going to be patch 6.3, and it will be a spoiler cast. I think enough time has passed that we can go ahead and do that. I mean, easily. Honestly, this is the first time when I have not finished the MSQ for a new patch in the first week. It's kind of weird.
Oh.
But like I said, I've had other things taking my time, so
we'll leave
it at that. Aside from that, I think we need to throw out a huge thank you to our Patreon producers, Nick Nar, Aurori, Ravenheart, and Mika. Thank you very much for your support out on Patreon. We really do appreciate that. I think Seyrr doubly appreciates that. So
very much so.
Let's go ahead and jump into some gaming community news. Now, this one was kind of an interesting bit that I've been hearing about on the interwebs. GShade developers admitted that they added potential malware to the popular third-party shading tool for Final Fantasy 14. This article that I'm going to copy.
This was like the one third-party thing that is explicitly not against TOS, and it still managed to have drama.
Yeah. This is coming from Eurogamer, written by Ed Nightingale. Apparently, leaked Discord messages from the GShade developer Marat Satil reveal that malware was deliberately put into the mod code that could force a computer to shut down if GShade files were accessed by a third-party application.
Yeah.
The malware was seemingly included to teach a lesson about mod use. This was meant to be a lesson used specifically about taking this approach to the problem. Anything could have been in the payload, and you'd have been responsible for disturbing it to people and triggering it, reads the direct message.
Yeah.
That was a quote, so very...
yeah. I've been following this a bit. The underlying thing was... So the way that it was handled was not typical for a lot of, I think, for a lot of projects like this. Once a newer version comes out, the older version may still work, but it's just like no longer supported. They won't do yada yada yada. The way GShade was run, once a newer version came out, the older version would be bricked. You wouldn't be able to use it at all. This is not standard practice in most program development. And it got to a point where there was a period where updates were coming out very rapidly, like sometimes several updates a week. And so people were needing to continually download additional ones. This was getting a little bit frustrating for them. And so a 16-year-old created a workaround for it where you could use the functions for it, but through other programs. The developer in question did not like that, and decided to have beef with a 16-year-old. And so created that thing. So pretty much seem to treat it as just like, oh, it's just this little thing to teach a lesson. But no, like something that's forced shutting down your computer, that is 100% malware.
Mm-hmm. And it is, that is actually, you could potentially be subject to legal ramifications because you are affecting the functionality of somebody else's hardware.
Like that is 100% CFAA territory.
Mm-hmm.
The guy could have gotten charged with a felony if people were sufficiently inclined.
Absolutely.
Like I believe that would be a federal offense at that.
It is. It would fall in line with the cyber hacking acts that they've that hit Kevin Mitnick way back in the day. So,
which I mean, I think those laws are poorly written and massively over thinking. I want them to be reformed, but in the meantime, they are what's there. And holy crap, that's a risk to run just because you don't like that someone made a modification to your thing of dictating how people should use your program.
Yep. I mean, welcome to the world. I mean, that's what people do all the time. They change code and get it to run the way they want it to. And especially on something that is, publicly available on GitHub.
And something that is itself a mod, and so being used by people who already are down for modifying how their programs work.
Exactly. So it's a whole terrible thing. Our strong suggestion to anybody who's using GShade, uninstall immediately.
Well, at this point, if you are using it, given that the stuff was removed, given all that, all installations of it are already bricked.
Yep. So it's not going to work for you anyway, because it was GitHub actually removed GShade from their service, so something fucked up is going on with that. So
yeah, massive violation of their terms of service to have a program that would function in that way.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that require like the ability to use Creative Commons licenses and things like that anyway?
Yeah.
So I mean,
like it can
at that point, go ahead.
It can be something where it may not necessarily have been brought to their attention, and so there might be something up that's violating.
Mm-hmm.
But given the amount of attention this got, it was inevitable.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're using it, make sure you uninstall it because apparently the guy went off the deep end. There are other shading mods. Reshade is another popular one that people use. Maybe jump on that if you must use something like that. But
as mentioned, like this is something that the developers have specifically said, yes, this is like the one type of third-party tool that is okay. This does not violate terms of service. This is not changing anything of gameplay. This is just changing this little thing of how the stuff works, so it doesn't even give a gameplay advantage. This one thing is okay.
Yeah, it's literally just changing the way the picture looks. It makes it's a prettifier.
Yeah.
Also, hello, Shalant, welcome to the show. Glad you could make it.
But yeah, as I said earlier, the whole thing where it's like, this is the one thing that's legal for it, and it still managed to get all this drama on it. What is wrong with us?
Well, we're horrible people. What can I say?
The worst.
Let's go ahead and jump into the next little bit of news. Apparently, the Final Fantasy Tactics team is very busy right now, and maybe a potential remake is in the works? ?
Oh, yes.
This article is coming from the noisypixel.net and is written by Orpheus Joshua. So thank you so much for that. Apparently there was an interview done by Final Fantasy fan site Finaland, and recently interviewed producer and director of the upcoming Theatrhythm Final Bar line game, Ichiro Hazama and Masanobu Suzui, about various specific subjects.
Full disclosure, I totally read that site's name as Finland for a moment. I was like, okay, they're really big in Finland, apparently.
Ha ha ha. So they had initially asked them about mobile game Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, or Diffu, as commonly called, especially by Seyrr, because that's how Seyrr rolls.
Oh my god, Jesse is such a delightful character.
Talking about, bringing in other characters from other different games and why there are so few tactics characters right now. Basically, what they ended up saying was when they bring in a character from another game, they don't just, create the character and then bring it in. They actually talk to the team of developers that are responsible for those characters in that game so they can make sure when they implement it, it's being implemented with as much love and care as possible to bring as much of the experience for that into whatever game they're bringing in, whether it's Theatrhythm, whether it's Defu, or any of the other games like that.
As a Defu player, I can definitely testify in terms of like the kits that they give the characters and how they work and how they feel, in terms of the interactions that they have. You can tell that there's a lot of care and attention and love. Like, this is something that is made by people who are clearly fans of the series and really want to represent it well. So it makes sense that they would be reaching out to the various original creators to make sure that they're getting those finer details right as well.
Now, in where this is coming to is what he says during this question in the interview. He says the tactics team is incredibly busy at the moment. They have other things to do. They're heavily involved in another project at the moment, so we just don't have time to talk to them.
Yeah, there's been rumors floating around off and on for a while, so this is really fueling that fire.
That NVIDIA leak, I think, did mention something about a tactics remake as well as the Final Fantasy IX one. Did they not?
I think so. There's also been some murmurs about some type of remake or remaster or something of Vagrant Story, which I would be very excited for.
Either one would be good, but it just goes to show that there are other things going on, and we might have a new tactics game coming out, or a remake of the original one from way back on the PlayStation era.
Yep. That interview also, one of the longest standing ones. Like, the tactics one is a little bit surprising just because it's so long. But in Defu, they've had so much of the Final Fantasy X cast. They've added Braska, for God's sake. And Riku is still not a playable character, to the point where it is long ago became a meme. And it seems like there's apparently some possible outside rights issue involved with Riku. Like, there's something really esoteric going on as to why they haven't added her and possibly aren't able to add her. So, fascinating glimpse at a lot of the behind the scenes work that goes on when you're trying to make a title where you're bringing back a lot of these old properties, having this massive crossover thing.
Interesting. I wondered why she wasn't in the game, because I figured she'd actually be a fun character to play, being using fist weapons and then having an ability to potentially mix they
could go for the mix. They could go for some of the thieving things. They could lean heavily on the machina use, the machine usage, especially given her special dress sphere from 10-2. There's a lot of options for how they could go about it. And even in the actual game's text, like the dialogue and there's been some bits where they riffed on the YRP thing from Final Fantasy X-2. So they're aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, because even Pain is in the game.
Oh yeah,
but yes. So there's only YP, no YRP.
Yes, there's a bit where she does that, but with several other people, because there's characters from other games there as well.
Fair.
But yeah, at the very least, it's nice to have some type of understandable explanation for what. Because the idea that they just somehow decided not to do Riku just because for this long seemed completely insane.
Yeah, and also
if it is that there's some type of rights issue or other thing going on with that at least makes some more sense.
And for crying out loud, try and work it out so you can get her in the game.
It takes two to tango on that. If the other side doesn't want to, especially given how committed they are to respecting the visions of the original creators and all that, there's only so much they can do.
All right. And speaking of Final Fantasy Theatrhythm Final Bar line, it releases on February 16th. So next week is available on Switch and PS4. There is currently a free demo available to try the game out. So if you have not yet given it a shot, you can go to the PlayStation Store or the Nintendo eShop, and you can download a trial and give it a shot. I need to do that because I think it'd be kind of fun. I remember when we were at Detour last year, they actually had a Theatrhythm arcade game, and Nick Nar was playing that quite a bit.
Oh, I love a good rhythm game in general, and this is one where I would be singing along, and I know all the songs already, so...
I'm so sure good. Nick Nar has already downloaded the demo, and he probably actually already has...
Hey, Nick Nar, ever thought of getting an old arcade cabinet, gutting it, putting it in a MAME emulator, something like that?
Okay,
I know people who do that.
he is saying Final Bar is close to what that game was, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So give it a shot. All right, so at this point, we might as well jump into some spoiler territory. So for those of you who have not yet finished patch 6.3, we will be talking about a number of main plot points from the main storyline and from the 24-man side quests. So you have been warned. Maybe pause the podcast if you're listening to us afterwards, or come back to it later. Or just, mute the stream and just give us the view. That old thing. But Seyrr, I'm going to let you kind of take over on this one, since you have a little bit more experience in this than I do for right now. And
it's not like I've spent the last couple of weeks in heavy analysis of some of the things that are going on, and did not spend several hours last night just delving into the music on Euphrosyne. Holy crap, the music. Anyways.
By the way, that means he did all of those things.
I did all of those things and then some.
For your benefit, people, so appreciate it. Well, actually, no, he did it for his benefit. Who are we kidding?
I did it partly for the show's benefit. Like, I wanted to talk about this well, but also, I was halfway down this rabbit hole already. Yeah, I just needed to wriggle a bit further.
Seyrr likes a good bit of lore and story, so take it away.
And we've got a lot going on. So we'll start with the MSQ itself, which this patch cycle was under the title Gods Revel, Lands Tremble. The Gods Reveling seems to be referring more to the Euphrosyne, but the Lands Trembling is what we got in spades here.
Oh boy.
Yeah. After the previous patch, we're of course preparing to return to the Void, to delve down into Azel's legacy and the Void Gate there. But our preparations are interrupted when Vertra senses Azdaha far to the north in Garlemald. So all of our plans are put on hold as we take a trip up north to visit with the twins. We get to check in with them, learn a little bit more about what they've been doing while we've been occupied, and of course, in conjunction with that sensing of Azdaha, we're getting reports of void scent far to the east of the main city of Garlemald, up in those mountains. Of course, very difficult to access, and so preparations start being made for supplies, for a Magitech snowcraft that can make the journey. In the process of that, as we get divided up into teams, we do have a nice little scene between Zero and Alice, where Zero asks Alice about her motivations to help others, why she does it given that she doesn't have an obligation to them and she doesn't necessarily have any promise of gain. Alice talks a little about that when asked about really about like, okay, but why? She describes it as, I followed my heart. What I got out of it came after. Which is something that really seems to strike Zero. Zero, of course, still working under this mindset of there's always needs to be this even exchange, that like if someone has done something that you have an obligation in order to rebalance that, but otherwise no work without pay kind of thing. Alice, for her part, seems to really appreciate just how straightforward and direct Zero is. Those two actually make a really fun pair, and I'd love to see them interact more. They share a mindset in a lot of ways. We do have the Void Scent Horde approaching Tertium and the various refugees, and at first Zero will only agree to stand watch in case that something is coming to let us know about it, as payment for a booze that she received earlier. But after some time, she stops Ulysses when he's about to go out, and instead goes out in his stead to rescue several soldiers to fight off against Void Scent. She is herself not entirely sure what's motivating her to act, but we get a really cool set piece. We get a role-playing segment where we get to role-play as Zero, using all sorts of various cool Reaper skills. Side note for the lore fiends, a lot of the scenes in this sequence do end up changing a bit if you have unlocked or developed your Reaper skills. There's a lot of the fun aspects of Reaper stuff going on in this section of the quest. And yeah, big a scene where Zero does end up getting in too deep, and we join for the rescue. Your usual big climactic set piece. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it was
Zero,
good.
yeah, Zero gets to do a big finish that we do still make sure to protect her for and get that all going. So a lot of fun with that. Big chance for Zero to play the hero a bit, which afterwards she's still not entirely sure what it was of that made her change her mind and go forward. So she's doing a lot of thinking throughout this entire process.
Indeed.
Yeah. Of course, after all that, she needs some time to recover. So the rest of us set out for Lapis Manalis. We have our dungeon for that. We have the usual duty support suspects to go along with us on that. Another one with, again, a lot of fun set pieces. The initial approach on a speeding Magitech snowcraft. Some sections of the... I really love the dungeons that have kind of like the, okay, you have an outdoor field segment for it. This one having you scaling the mountain, being able to get some really gorgeous views of Garlemald in the distance and the Tower of Babel over it all. I kind of want to go back there in Explorer mode and take another look at it just because there's some really gorgeous vistas. Also, minor detail on Lapis Manalis I really loved. The spot where you disembark from the Magitech snowcraft, the formal name for it, hang on, I should have had this up already. Ilsabard Lapis Manalis. So it is labeled on the map as Via Nivalis XLVII, which, translating directly from Latin, would be Snowy Road 47. And I like to imagine some beleaguered bureaucrat map maker back in old Garlemald who's just like, okay, this needs a name. It's Snowy Road number 47. Fuck it. It's so just like, okay, mark this and go on.
Well, I wonder if they actually use, a nice way like they did with the interstate road system where you had certain numbers going this way, certain numbers going that way.
Oh my god, a Garlean interstate system, like the Garlean highway system. Because we had some of those highway bridges and the like. One wonders what their road system was like.
So I mean, it's entirely possible that Snowy Road 47 is just a part of the Garlean interstate system.
I mean, Garlemald, a lot of it was modeled off of various Roman Empire type things, and Rome itself was famous for their road system that persisted in a lot of ways well after the actual empire.
But yeah, I
hadn't even thought of that. That's fascinating.
I wanted to blow your mind with that one.
Yeah, no, mind blown. That's fun. That's fun to think about. I'm going to be going down that rabbit hole for a while. The dungeon itself, we climb the mountain, enter what turns out to be an old Reaper village, scattered about with all sorts of, in addition to living quarters, there's all sorts of various practice things, monsters to fight against. The naming of it, pretty much all of the stuff in Lapis Manalis has Latin names that translate pretty directly to what it is. So it ends up being like Harvester's Village or something like that. Side note, because I hadn't mentioned it already, Lapis Manalis is another one that's drawn from real world mythology. It would be in the Roman religion, literal translation would be like Stone of the Underworld, and it would be a sacred stone that was supposed to cover the gateway into the underworld. So there's this whole image of we're going to this place to actually head into the underworld. And after the section with the abandoned Reaper village,
that makes sense.
Yeah, great mid-boss for that one, by the way. Those of you who remember Temple of the Fist and that training robot that would give you a rating of how well you performed afterwards, we have a revisit of that with a Reaper training dummy that will compare your performance and give you a numerical ranking afterwards as well. The best ranking has you compared to the legendary Drusilla, who you may remember as the Reaper who trains you in the Reaper quest.
I don't remember that when I went through it, but I was also trying to learn all of the different pieces at the time.
That does require you to get the best score, which requires either extremely good performance, or if you're doing it in trust mode, it seems to be a lot more forgiving about the requirements.
Okay. I'll have to run it again.
Yeah, but then after that, the final section of the dungeon brings us into underground cerulean lakes, Very fitting, of course, with the Garlemald, the natural source of ceruleum, but also this deep blue flames, underground caverns. Given that we had this whole stone of the underworld thing already, we've got this feeling of having descended into a hell. Like,
yeah.
Again, really great job just evoking this feeling of taking this trip into Hades, these unearthly blue flames, all of that. Gorgeous. Loved every bit of it. And the pathway there ends at a void gate guarded by elemental archfiend Kanyatso, fiend of water. So yeah, like we had in the previous set, we had Scarmaleon as the archfiend of Earth as a dungeon boss, and we've repeated that here with Kenyazo.
Yep. Except
still really good fun fight. The bit of it where you have a huge tsunami coming in as his charged up ultimate attack. I know some folks had expressed concerns about having some of the elemental archfiends as dungeon bosses instead of trials, but I felt like, okay, they still managed to get this really epic feeling with that giant tsunami going.
Sarah, you want to unfuzzify your camera real quick?
Oh, yes. Sorry, sitting forward a little bit. All right, hi, those watching on the stream. Come on, camera. You can do it. My face is here. Eyes are here. You can do this. Oh.
For those of you listening on the podcast, this is why you need to join us live, because it's more fun this way. Yeah.
But so we do have that boss fight. At the end, we do find that Azjaha's... God, I can't pronounce her name right. But that the presence was just her eye, which, as a massive source of ether, was used to open that void gate. Mm-hmm. Once again, dragon eyes being used as magic batteries.
Which is kind of a sad thing to see, especially it devastated poor Vertra.
Yeah, poor Vertra as Varshan was. You could in the scenes afterwards, you could just see how hard it is for him to go on. Yeah. There's a bit of discussion among the other characters, but that moment of hope that was just being used as, and we'll learn a little bit more later about how about the full implications for that. But Kanyazo seems to suggest that even with his defeat, that whatever their plan was, it was a success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Take a little time there. Bring back some ceruleum for the twins to help with their continued rebuilding efforts.
A lot of ceruleum, to be honest with you.
Okay, yes. A lot of... I mean, there's a lot down there.
I believe it was about 27 metric shit tons of ceruleum. I believe was the...
But yes, there's a fair amount of momentary breather things, light bit of conch relief at some point, finding containers to use, transporting stuff, a bit of discussion among the characters. A little bit of time after all that to let stuff calm down before we do return to Thavnair, at which point we get reports of an explosion at the Baflau remnants, the site of Alsadal's legacy and the Void Gate.
Not just reports, we see that fucker blow up. We see it in the distance.
Yeah. It's something, I think, where there had been like a previous one, and then it seems like there's more explosions or something going on. And eventually we do piece together from the reports information about a fiend that fled north to the mountain Khadga. Side note, Khadga is a Sanskrit word meaning sword. There's some interesting religious implications for it, but the big thing is, you know that in all the promotional things you have that huge mountain that's going out like that, that would be Khadga.
Gotcha.
And yeah, after a bit of work, in order to find a route up there, at the foot of the mountain itself, we meet our fourth archfiend, Rubicant, the archfiend of fire. We also get a report from Ishtola that those explosions at the Baflau remnants have destroyed the alchemical furnace and the Void Gate. So our route into the Void has been cut off. Rubicant challenges us to a battle at the mountain summit, and there we have our Mount Ordeals fight, given our long Final Fantasy IV reference stream. Mount Ordeals would be the site where Cecil underwent the challenges needed to become a paladin. Originally, Mount Ordeals was where Scarmaleon was fought, so having Rubicant there is changing things up a bit, but we've had this before with our theme park versions, where we swirl around the details.
Your camera got fuzzy again.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I'm going to try adjusting this. Anyways.
A little bit better there.
Whatever, you can see me. I'm a general form. It's fine.
He's just a little bit blobular. It's still good. It's still good.
Yeah. Fun fight there. Interesting mechanic with a burning fuse that you have to that has a shifting pathway to an attack that will detonate, and you need to figure out how to avoid that.
Yeah, I basically just followed everybody else.
Yeah, it's a little more involved in the extreme. There's like 2 fuses going at once.
Ooh.
I really did like the thing of having it like done as a fuse to kind of work with the whole fiery thing.
Mm-hmm.
We do get a reference of his famous line about how he will show you true fire, originally said by Rubicon in FF4 to Edge, who had tried using a ninja fire spell on him.
Whoops.
Yeah. But after his defeat, Rubicon tells us about Golbez's plan, which is to allow the denizens of the void to come to the source, where they will be able to die and return to the life stream. Not the grand type, the thing we like. A little bit surprising to find that their goal is to die, and we get a flashback and a reminder that Kanyazo seemed really happy to be killed by us to get to die. In the process of this, especially aided by an Echo flashback, we learn about how the 13th is a world where death doesn't exist. Golbez talks about when putting forward his plan to his elemental archfiends that they need not suffer in this purgatory of death and rebirth forever. Stuff that dies in the 13th, the ether kind of hangs around for a little bit and then reconstitutes. Stuff doesn't return to the life stream. You've got like this endless cycle of death and rebirth, and you're remembering every single bit of it.
Yeah. It's and that's what drives a lot of the fiends and the void sent mad, because they just have no other.
After millennia of existing, of suffering, of going through all this, so many of them just want an ending. And the hope is that by making it to the source, that they will be able to die and return to the life stream and end.
I think this ends up being an entire Ascian plot point again, going back to the rejoinings. Personally, Nick Nar is talking about attempting another rejoining, because they had tried to destroy it initially, back in the 3rd astral era, right? Was that not when, or was it before then?
So the Void was their first attempted rejoining. So this would be back even before the first Calamity, because the first Calamity was their first successful.
Okay. Because with everything going on there, he's talking about his talk with the Ascians.
Yeah, like that was one of the other interesting revelations that came out, that they were aware of the plots of the Ascians. They were aware of a lot of these details, that the rejoining was a thing. Once we finish going through this, I'll mention some of the speculations that I've had and that I've seen and that I personally have. But that is one of the other revelations you get from this: that whatever is going on, it's by people who are at least aware of the Ascians and of those plots and of the nature of the Sundering.
Yeah, I think my personal thought on this entire piece is Golbez is still. He's been completely, enthralled by the thought of being able to die. Yeah.
Rubicon does suggest that Golbez may have his own reasons for what's going on. That
maybe he's an Ascian.
I'll get to what I'm thinking about that momentarily. But he also finally lets us know that Golbez and Azdaja can be found on the moon of the 13th.
And those scenes at the end there, very, very creepy.
Yeah.
Seyrr, I need you to redo your camera again real quick.
Yeah, let me try that again. What's wrong with that? Why it keeps on focusing?
You need to get rid of that goatee, I think.
Wow.
I think it's sick of evil Seyrr. It wants good Seyrr to come back. Just kidding. Anyway.
Couple lore notes on all of this. There's a bit where they talk about the source as the Promised Land, which I don't know how much it was intentional. I feel like in terms of using that phrasing, there's a little bit of a callback to Final Fantasy VII, where they also talk about the concept that the ancients had in that game of a Promised Land, which Shinra Corporation thought would be a land that was very rich in Mako and this planetary energy, but which we later learned that the Cetra, the ancients, seem to think of as a metaphorical thing indicating like death and the end of a journey and getting to return to the life stream.
Yeah, the life stream itself being the Promised Land, joining up with everybody else who has come before.
Getting to have this ending. Given how much we've dabbled in a lot of like various Indian culture things, other stuff like that, I thought it was really fun that we were getting this exploration of the concept of samsara, of this endless cycle of death and rebirth that shows up in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and a lot of those other places, and that one of the big underlying things in a lot of the religion and philosophy there is that there is this endless cycle of death and rebirth, and one of the goals is to find a way to break out of the cycle. So having that show up in this thing where we've already been exploring a bit of like Indian culture and other stuff like that, I thought it was kind of fun to include that element there.
Yeah, it is, and I believe that what they're searching for is nirvana, correct? Something along those lines.
Nirvana is this concept of enlightenment. It's like a thing that you need in order to like really get and grasp and understand, which in some things it's like it's this thing that will allow you to break out of that cycle. In others, it's one that allows you to sort of make peace with it or embrace it, or like there's a couple different things there. Like nirvana is not necessarily itself the ending of this cycle. It is this like enlightenment on this like grand universal transcendent scale.
I heard it smells pretty good though.
Smells like Teen Spirit. I'm picking up what you're putting down, whether I want to or not.
Exactly. Sorry.
Sorry. Rubicon.
Yeah,
Rubicon does also say that one of the big reasons he's willing to tell us all this is because he doesn't think that it's going to keep Golbez from being able to fulfill his plan. He does share a lot of his namesake's aspects of like caring about honor and recognizing like the good natures of others. Although he says that like even with like the fact that we have this pure purpose that he can't allow us to do because since it goes against his, but he seems to want to like recognize that in death, which is another one of the reasons that he's willing to talk to us about this and answer our questions.
And from what I understand, or from what I read or heard on that, Rubicon is also one of the four archfiends who's maintained the most of his humanity, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. We'll learn a little bit more about that in a side quest that I'll discuss briefly later, but he is definitely the most still like human of the archfiends, for lack of a better term here. We do get a couple wrap-up scenes. We're of course, going to need to find a new pathway to the void, given that our old one has been blown up. Estinian, of course, is going to go start preparing and training, suggests that we do the same. We get a couple wrap-up scenes, including, as mentioned, another one in Golbez's lair, now with all four of his elemental archfiends' thrones having gone dark. But we do get to see Azdaja there, and we do get a bit that pulls out and shows this entire complex in that crater where we would have found Zodiark in our world. So he's not just on the moon, he is in this particular thing. Like, the bits of Zodiark that were in the other worlds, we have been told, were also on their moon, and so this is a place where he's set up.
Yeah, so he was set up inside of Zodiark. Is that maybe where some of their power came from?
So my personal theory on this is, so we know that Zodiark was split into all of these people, and they were distributed among the things. And when Zodiark died, all of those other ones died. But the 13th is a world where stuff can't die.
Oh.
And so I actually saved this just because I saved it with the thing with timestamps because I wanted to be able to refer to it.
Okay. You know he's serious when he's got timestamps, folks. Excuse me.
Here we are. Yes, I saved it. Okay, so my theory formulated is that Golbez is either is or is directly possessed by the piece of Zodiark that was sealed away on the 13th. Given the deathless nature of that world, it did not die when the rest of them did. I am less certain about why it's doing what it's doing. Like one possibility, as mentioned, is that maybe the souls that made it up also want to return to the live stream, but also maybe they want to like try to carry out the rejoining, reconstitute the rest of Zodiark from our world. Like I'm not quite sure of the motivation in this theory, which I want to 100% stress is a theory, is not canon confirmed.
No.
Though if it is, I am going to gloat so much.
My only thing that would retract from that being a possibility is the fact that Zodiark died relatively recently, and Golbez and his Archfiends have been planning this for millennia.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is entirely possible that Zodiark has possessed him since, and now is and they shifted their thoughts from their initial plans of trying to maybe rule the 13th and take it over to now continue the rejoining.
Yeah.
So that's possible.
So I also noted a couple features of this. Having Golbez either directly possessed by this fragment of Zodiark or actually be the fragment, it would explain about how Golbez knows about the other shards and the activities of the Ascians.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us a very good reason for why Golbez's base is in the specific place where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Since this Zodiark is this big amalgamation of souls, it's kind of a Chekhov's gun callback to the info we got about how these amalgamations of souls are like unstable and emotionally complex and all that stuff that's going on with that. So and best of all, at least as far as I'm concerned, it ends up being a massive callback to that scene in Final Fantasy IV where after we defeated Golbez, his disembodied hand seizes the crystal. If it turns out that Golbez is like Zodiark's hand or something.
Well, we'll have to see what comes in 6.4 and 6.5. And maybe 6.6.
At this point, most of the theories I've seen suggest that there is some kind of Golbez Zodiark connection, though whether it's, as I said, like the actual disembodied hand when it put on a suit of armor, or whether it's like has somehow influenced him, or whether Golbez sees the power. There's like the actual nature of it, there's a lot of debate and suggestion about, but it at least does seem reasonably universally agreed, especially given the location of that base, that it's somehow tied to the remnants of Zodiark.
It's gotta be, because I hadn't even thought of that before, and it's it's a very
I love it so much.
It's a very intriguing thought. So we'll have to see where the dev team brings the storyline further on.
And if it does turn out to be true, I do have a thing saved with timestamp that does not have the edited mark on it, just in case I ever need to prove it. I was so proud of myself.
Also, I have to say I really liked the progression of Zero's story and her growth. From when she entered the source, her interaction with Alice and then being saved by the Scions really changed her point of view from being a work for your pay for work type of thing to being more like, I'm doing this because I want to ?
So like
it's really neat, because I mean she says herself she doesn't know why she feels this way, but she's going to continue to check it out and see where it leads.
Yeah, so like the bit especially where Alice says, I followed my heart and what I got out of it came after. Like in the 13th, you have a world where over the course of painful centuries and millennia, people have learned that you need to make sure that you secure your payment beforehand. You need to make sure it's done, because otherwise you can't count that it'll be there.
Exactly.
And this idea of being in a position where you can have faith, where you can trust that there are others who are trying to do the right things, who aren't necessarily trying to take advantage of you. We've had a lot of a recurring theme about the importance of these bonds and connections. It was the thing that got us to the final boss in Endwalker itself.
Yeah.
And so again, having these things where you can trust in these bonds and these connections, where you can help and you can just that whatever you get out, like you'll get something out of it, even if you don't get it right this moment.
Yep. It's kind of a pay it forward thing.
Kind of something like that. Paying it forward does require some amount of like being able to believe that, like, you know what, like you'll be able to, like, stuff will work out for it afterward. Like you'll be able to get something. You don't have to make sure that you've secured this.
You're doing something right. You're doing the right thing for the right reasons, not for the right payment.
Right.
And then it at some point the universe will see you through.
Yeah. If we're going to end up with more FF4 comparisons, we might see when we're actually on the moon, this connection with like Golbez and then the whole Zemus Zeromus thing. And so we possibly have this like darker force that comes and arises, and Zero standing against it using the power of these bonds, much like in FF4. We had all of our party members and the people back on the planet sending their support and the strength of those bonds to help us continue the fight.
It'd be Zero.
Assuming that they want to.
We'll make it. It's Zero the arc.
Oh. This, of course, depends on how heavily they want to lean on that riffing on FF4's storyline, but there's a lot of options there if they want to go for that.
Anyway.
Anyway. So yeah, and all that's just the MSQ.
Yep.
We also got another big set of lore. This one,
a real big set of lore.
Oh my god, the amount of Nofika, like the Nofika memes, like we knew they were coming. She's a fertility goddess. We've seen the twin adder depictions of her.
That's what she said.
But yes, focusing a little more on just like the foundations of this world, on learning a bit more about those details, we got the second part of our Alliance Raid series, Myths of the Realm, with our visit to Euphrosyne. So that one started with us reconvening at the Omphalos, with Grahatia bringing along this large Charlayan device used to analyze ether. Poor guy, like that thing looked so goddamn unwieldy.
Yeah, it was a big old piece of kit, and he was like,
yeah.
It weighed twice as much as he did, I swear to God.
We got Grahatia in Gleaner clothes, which gives me that much more hope that maybe we'll get Gleaner clothes eventually. One hopes. But they've Snowheim has found that the monument at the center of the Omphalos contains an epigraph with an incomplete inscription, and after a bit of debate, she suggests that we just ask the gods if they'll help us read it. Very direct. Little bit of a silly scene later. I had not considered the fact that Open Sesame might be a thing on Eorzea, though with a different plant product. I do love the whole option when you give you're given the option to either say it enthusiastically or say it resigned and feeling kind of dumb about it. But the gods do respond to our call. Nofika appears and agrees to help us solve the epigraph and the mystery behind it in exchange for fighting against more of the 12. Still not clear why they want us doing it, but we go ahead and make the preparations. Originally, we had planned to revisit the heavens of lightning and fire, now using the etheric analyzer to see what's going on in them. But given that we've been given this challenge, the new plan is to go to the heaven of Earth, analyze there, while Grahatia can do the analyzing while we fight. This does mean, of course, that Grahatia is not available for fighting. He fulfills the role that Derek did in Aglaya, where he's following along, making comments and observations and letting us know what we're running into. So we have battles that ensue, first against Nofika, the goddess of abundance and patron of Gridania.
Oh yeah, lots of abundance. An abundance of abundance.
Representing that bounty of nature, her battlefield is this gorgeous golden wheat field that over the course of the battle changes to a flower field and a forest. So having this like plant life, flourishing, fertility in all these different forms. There's like this cute little pastoral village that you can see in the distance as well. One house that even looks vaguely like a hobbit hole kind of thing. So this really like farming community, peaceful feel to it, which fit really, really well. After that, we end up fighting against Althik, the god of space and time, who is unexpectedly joined by his sister Nymea, the goddess of fate and fortune. They're fought among pillars of Earth that have been resculpted by Althic's power as this agent of change, of being able to manipulate space, the changes of time, things like that. Given that Nymea's in there, we have not just those Earth elements, but also some water elements, given her water aspect. And so you have waves that crash across the battlefield. She pulls out various tarot card mechanics, including reversed mechanics, which a reversed tarot card is one that's upside down and has a different meaning. And so when she pulls out those cards, reversing them changes how you're supposed to do the mechanics. Althic using his power over time to accelerate when various mechanics will go off and change the timing of them.
It was an interesting fight.
Yeah, lots of fun interactions between them. Also, the first 24-man fight I've seen with an actual explicit enrage timer. Nymea has made a fated prediction of Althic's victory, which when time runs out, they win the fight immediately. Very pretty enrage. I've seen a couple screenshots of it. It's gorgeous. Most raid parties won't run into it, but it was kind of fun to have this. Oh yes, and she has explicitly predicted that at this point he will win the fight. So you are literally fighting against fate at this point.
Well, I suppose that makes sense, given her, what she is in the whole system. So.
Yep, she is the spinner. She is goddess of fate and fortune. The whole spinner thing being like this element, like with the fates of like spinning the threads of destiny and weaving them together. After that, we do have the portal open to the heaven of ice, where we fight against Halone, goddess of war, patron deity of Ishgard, and we are in the spires of a great castle made of ice. Some shades of like our fight in the vault being like this big arena high atop the spires of this imposing thing. Again, given the Ishgardian connection, works really well for that. Halone using lots of various thrusting spear attacks, ice sweeping across the battlefield. One thing I really appreciate, although she's using spear for the most part, when she does use her ultimate attack, the animation that she uses for it, she's performing the gladiator weapon skill Rage of Halone. So I kind of like, as this goddess of war, yes, she can use all these different weapons, and she does end up using this attack that is named for her.
Makes
really
sense.
Fun little callback there. And finally, for our final one, we face off against Menfina, love goddess and goddess of the moon, fought in the chambers of that ice castle. Supposedly, according to the ancient lore, the heavens of ice, the castle within it, is carved by Halone out of frozen moonbeams. And so...
Well, we don't just fight Menfina in that battle. We also fight her friend, her companion.
Oh, yes. Faithful Hound Dalamud joins the battle about halfway through after her ultimate attack.
Yeah, because Dalamud kind of came out halfway through history too.
Ish. And they'll actually touch on this a little bit later on, but yes, she is joined by her loyal hound, which, given that we know Dalamud was launched in the third Astral Era and was not really part of this, there's always been this recurring question of, okay, so then how is Dalamud a thing? How is it that the actual goddess does have Dalamud, given that this was not an original part of the thing?
Well,
this has been a question that's plagued us. This has been a question that's plagued us for a while, and it is something that they address very shortly.
Yep, I'll let you do it then.
Yeah, the music is a bop. I discussed this with people about the difference between a bop and a banger.
Yep, we had the discussion 2 weeks ago, in fact.
Yep, very reminiscent of like 90s anime magical girl stuff, which also kind of fits with Menfina's entire style. Also, the regular boss music, Rhythm of the Realm, samples melody pieces and bits from all sorts of stuff. Like you've got the Dawn of a New Era, you've got some of the Torn from Heaven, like all sorts of bits. The fact that it's called Rhythm of the Realm, and it's grabbing all this different stuff from the realm, all these different musical stings, and just like uniting them all together. I am obsessed with that piece. I love it so much. But yes, after all that, after our progression through the various gods, who again seem more delighted to be fighting us than anything else, Menfina is like just in case you're worried about it, this is nothing I can't handle. They want us to like you don't have to worry about hurting us. We just want to fight you and see how this goes. Their motivations in all this are going to be very interesting to find out about. But then after that, we do get our story sequences after. The gods reveal that the information we're looking for is stored in eternal stones that are known today as the Marks of the 12. And they give us instruments to record that information. The investigation team splits up to record those marks, each team accompanied by some of the gods who want to see what the mortals are up to. We get stuck with Derek for this bit. A fun bit of comic relief there. In receiving those instruments, the gods tell us to essentially picture in your mind that which holds information. So the various scholars in the groups get books. Fun note, the book that Grahatia gets is in fact Count Edmond de Fortem's memoir, Heaven's Word. the one where the Crystal Exarch, his future self, read about the Warrior of Light. So yes, when he thinks about something that holds information, the thing that's most resonant there is the book where he learned about the Warrior of Light. He's such a simp for us.
Yeah, a little bit.
He really is. Derek, as a wanderer and a traveler, the thing that holds information for him is a map.
A parchment map, actually, a scroll.
Yeah. And the thing I totally saw coming and still cackled like a madman.
Yep.
The one that we get is a tombstone, because that's what holds information. To our credit, our character looks slightly disgusted at this whole thing.
Yeah.
There's someone like,
really? Jinx.
Yeah. It's like, for the adventurer, for the one who's this is what holds information and can be exchanged with your local House of Splendor's detailer situated in a variety of convenient yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So we travel around to those marks of the 12, collecting data. At Thaliak's mark at Rotherfrost and Mordona, the gods that are accompanying us discuss the stones, as well as their bonds with men and with the star, and how the prayers of men reinforce those relationships. At Halone's mark at the Gates of Fury and Kurthus, the gods talk about how worship of Halone has changed over the ages. And Halone emphasizes that the faith that mortals have in the gods is theirs alone, that this is not something that the gods want to tamper with, and that the prayers of the people help shape the forms of the gods into what they need to be. Memphina's mark is next, near the Steel Vigil in Kurthus, and there we meet a callback I was not expecting, but am very grateful to see, a former member of the Lambs of Dalamud. That's calling back all the way to 1.0 there. We get that brief encounter with them at Tamtara Deepcroft in A Realm Reborn, but they're mostly a 1.0 phenomenon.
Well, also in the Blue Fog, there's that camp of the Lambs of Dalamud out there.
Oh, yes. At the abandoned Mithril mine, right.
Yep. That's where I remember most of them. Well, because back in the day, that was our leveling spot.
Oh yeah, that was a prime XP spot way back when. You let the fate last as long as possible, and you just kill the ads for the bonus XP.
Yep.
But yeah, so who talks a bit about his experiences there, about his worship of Memphine in the days before the Calamity, about how that was twisted by the cult. Talks about a lot of stuff that happened there. Derek gets a really good line during this bit about how you mustn't seek in men what you seek in gods. The former Lamb of Dalamud asking the Warrior of Light to give him an explanation, give him false solace, and Derek being like, no, as great as this person is, she's just a person. People are different from the gods. The things that you get from one are not what you get from the other. It's also at this point that during this that Memphina confirms to us that when people started worshiping the Red Moon, the satellite Dalamud, it was at that point that her hound came into existence. So while there had been some suspicion, she explicitly confirms at that point.
Yep, because it became a second moon. People didn't realize that it was a man-made moon. And
because enough time had passed,
and it changed the dogma of what she was.
Yeah. This change in the worship brought her hound into existence. That was something that, again, there was implications, but she explicitly confirms it at this point. We've finished with our marks at this point, so because we go to check on Kryl at the concern of some of the others who have noted that she had seemed a little off about some stuff. We do find that Kryl has gone off on her own and that she had wanted to recover the data without the assistance and supervision of the gods. And so in sequence, we go to Nofika's mark at the Conjurers Guild in Gridania, Biragoth's mark out by Camp Tranquil in the Southern Shroud, and the mark of, I believe it's Althik that's at the Omnipore Keep, which is where we do finally find Kryl. And Biragoth very stealthily keeping an eye on her. He just couldn't stay away, but he at least is trying to respect her desire to do it without the gods helping out. And Kryl herself talks about how she feels it's important that as people we do need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet and not be completely dependent on the gods, that we should at least look to try to find answers without their assistance. It's really interesting. So, like, we have this entire thing of the gods in service to the people, when oftentimes it's thought like the gods are trying to help the people want to stand on their own. So it's kind of this reversal of this traditional relationship that you see between them.
Wow. Look to Square Enix having thoughts like this on when it comes to religion.
And this is not the first time they've explored some of these various ideas about aspects of divinity.
No, exactly.
But so with that, we all return to the Omphalos to read the epigraph. I will not repeat it here because it's fairly long, but I absolutely recommend going over it as many times as you need to. Lots of fun little bits in there. It explains that the gods were brought forth by the will of the star, and that they're affected by the hopes and prayers of its people. And in order to not lose sight of their purpose, they have there recorded their duties. And it then lists off each god along with their respective portfolio. And so we can see that, like, although, for instance, some aspects of Halone changed over the years, that there's some stuff that is specifically part of her portfolio, and those bits will not change.
So, question for you, Seyrr. Do you think that a lot of the changes that have occurred within the 12 are due to Dynamis?
That is one that the characters also talk about, that although Dynamis is not nearly as strong on our world because of the power of Ether, that it is there, that it does seem to have some effects. We've seen, like, for instance, the implication that it's involved in limit breaks and going beyond power. And so the idea that over millennia, this could even slowly reshape gods, the power of these thoughts and feelings and emotions, these hopes and prayers. And so Kryl, at this point, does some theorizing. Of course, given her previous strong connection with Hydaelyn, she talks about the will of the star, that the will of the star was Hydaelyn. That Hydaelyn brought forth the 12 in the forms of the ancients who collaborated with her. We know that Hydaelyn had 12 other rebels that went along with her, and that, so just like, for instance, Emmett Selk, when he was recreating Aro, kind of made recreations of his friends, made a Hyplodeus that wasn't actually Hyplodeus, but acted a lot like, thought of itself as kind of this echo of it. That Hydaelyn may have created these echoes of her collaborators to serve as the people who would help maintain stability in the world. There's some interesting...
So you're saying the gods are Asians?
No, the gods are like the ones who oppose the Asians-ish. They do have a much stricter code of, like, non-interference. One of the quests in this chain is actually called Divine Non-Intervention. And Derek, for instance, talks a bit about, like, how he finds it problematic to involve himself in the lives of others, although he has trouble not helping someone who's in need. There's been more and more suggestions that Derek has at least some kind of divine connection to things. Also, the epigraph does mention an unnamed 13th, who may be the Watcher on the Moon. So it seems likely that we're going to be exploring that a bit in the next round of these things.
We're Watchers on the Moon?
We have gear for Dragoon. I don't love it. That's
No.
just a first pass. Anyways, especially also given that we were expecting 4 gods per wing, and we got 5 because Nymea decided to do what fate does and be tricky and unexpected and show up somewhere else.
We're just gonna have
So maybe,
3 in the next one potentially, or
which means maybe we bring in something that's representative of the Watcher, or there's some other trick going on,
or maybe the remnants of Heidelin herself.
Maybe. But yeah, and at this point, with the epigraph decoded, with an etheric analyzer full of data, Graha and Kryl are going to return to Charlene to analyze that data, get ready for the next round of investigation. And Derek closes things out with a bit of a reflection on how our time together will eventually come to an end when this finishes. And although there is a sadness to that, he views that as like kind of part and parcel of the joy that comes with spending this time together. Like the sadness wouldn't exist without the joy. And so like he being able to accept the sadness as part of the joy. Fun contrast there to the Dead Ends and the civilization of the Nibiran, who eliminated all sadness and in the process eliminated all joy, and thus were left with nothing but a nihilistic longing for the end. So again, a lot of the callbacks on themes and philosophies, they're coming fast and furious here, and I love it.
It was definitely an interesting take on the second bit there. I did enjoy it. And
yep. One other thing that has been pointed out that I really want to highlight here, especially given the whole question about like about the 12 as like these echoes of Heidelin's collaborators. When Nymea makes a comment about Althik, this just being the way he talks, the phrasing she uses is almost identical to that of the 2 researchers in Elpis, where you have the quest series where you're helping them improve the monsters, where you help them improve the toads and the behemoth and all that. Also, the fight before the trash before Althik and Nymea, the first set of trash includes a bunch of toads, which is one of the things that you help those researchers improve. The second set of trash includes 3 Ios, which is the beast that they started with, that are then followed up by a behemoth, which is the thing that you help them improve it into. So this feels like enough of a callback to be like, yes, 2 of those collaborators were those 2 people. They probably weren't all on Elpis. There was a lot more of the ancient world than that. But the fact that you have this exact same phrasing of fairly long speech, plus using the monsters that were involved in our interaction, part of me likes to believe that the gods have recognized us as the person who interacted with them way back when, and given that Althik is a deity of time, maybe has some idea of like how this could have happened, and they're playfully doing this thing to be like, oh, maybe later they'll realize what this all was and realize who we were.
That's pretty crazy, actually. I didn't notice that, but leave it to Seyrr to pick up on those tiny little threads that the SE devs have put out there for us.
Yeah, as I said, they're probably not all there. Like there's stuff where, like, for instance, in Elpis, Logriff is mentioned, but it's more of this representative was sent out there. Plus, these people were like, they're not part of the convocation. They're rebels. They're like fellow collaborators. Though the idea that a couple of them are these people whose lives we touched by giving them the idea for how to improve these monsters, that taught them about funerary rites and mentioned that Nymea lilies are something often used for that, which they had never heard of. Which makes one wonder if we introduced the name Nymea to them as well. Like, again, for the lore fiends, we already knew there was going to be a lot in this raid series to whet our appetites, to give us things to speculate over. But I was not expecting some of these connections, and I'm delighted to explore them.
Yeah, this was some interesting stuff that we got, and going over it with you has actually been very helpful for me to understand it a little bit better. So I'm so glad that we have you here to help us with that, and I hope everybody else enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, we've got a couple other short side quests.
Let's go ahead and skip those. Yeah. We don't need to worry about them because I haven't done anything on them for one.
I'll give the very brief, like, 2-line summary of them. Okay. Tataru's Grand Endeavor has us dealing with Eastern merchants, and so we get to, once again, spend some time with Hancock, as well as with the various auspices. This does require completion of the various Four Lords quests, I believe. Okay. We get to spend some time with them once again in bunny and chicken suits, which is definitely the least conspicuous thing you can do.
Of course.
Yeah. You also get a really cool kind of Yakuza style glamour set as a result of this. So I know there's a lot of people who are going to be fans out there of it. So I imagine a lot of them have gone for it already. But if you haven't, like, it's kind of fun to see Tataru's mercantile empire spreading. We do get a couple more tales of newfound adventure, where we get backstory for Kanyazo and Rubicant. For Kanyazo, we learned about his devotion to fighting, the type of person who would join in a battle to just beat up both sides. Well, with Rubicant, we learn a little bit about his history as a monk, and we talked a little about how he was the one who maintained his humanity the most, how even after the flood, he, like, maintained a sacred flame, did all sorts of ritual type things to try to maintain this connection to Entai of who he was before, which is why he's the one who's most able to recognize this goodness, to uphold these concepts of honor. I do recommend doing the quest just to get those extra little bits.
These are the Hectai quests, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Head to the Hall of the Radiant Host in Radzatan, help out that Hectai, get the bits of him together. We do get a little bit more of Island Sanctuary, where we're getting to bring some more of our various friends there, improve the place a bit, get delightful mounts, all that fun stuff. And as I mentioned during the pre-show, our custom deliveries let us meet the shepherd, the Leaf Man, the former shepherd Anden, who the fairies transformed, as they do for a lot of Leaf Men, and to help him try to reclaim his old form, and in the process learn a little bit about the ways of life in Verbert, back before it became taken over by the fairies. That's another one that I won't get into details, but there's a lot of fun little lore tidbits, especially for having a Norvrant take on them, which, given that we're going to be seeing more of Norvrant with the upcoming Crafter and Gatherer relics, where we get to deal with Grendel a bit, getting to revisit Norvrant again and getting to start getting some of those details and learning a bit more about life there. It's a fun way to whet the appetite for what's to come.
I'm really glad that they're not dropping the first after, that expansion completed.
I had worried. Like, I tried other MMOs, I spent a bit of time in WoW, and for a long there was kind of okay, after this one's done, we spent all this time building this neat little fortress and sanctuary thing here, and then we never go back to it. And so seeing here that, yes, this is this big unified world, it has all these parts of it, these people are continuing to have adventures, and we get to go back and visit and check in.
Well, that's the biggest difference I've found between Final Fantasy XIV or even Final Fantasy XI and other MMOs. Story driven.
Oh yeah, they know what we want and they give it to us.
Oh yeah.
I am looking forward. I have to say, given all that we've had of dealing with Rowena, with the relics, with Rowena and with Geralt, dealing with Moen and Grenelt in the crafting relic, and seeing how the dynamic there is going to be different, I am actually looking forward to that as a thing of contrast.
That
like
could be
in all the various things, like Moen's House of Splendors emphasizes like crazy her belief in the fundamental importance of honesty in dealings between two people, of being direct and open so that we can work together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out in those relics. Oh, there was a lot in this patch, and there's a lot that whetted my appetite for what's to come. So, as a lore monger, I am so thrilled with every bit of this.
It was some good stuff. I did enjoy it.
Oh.
And I'm looking forward to what the rest of the 6.x series brings us. But with that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like, subscribe, or follow us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for as long as it exists, because I've heard rumors that it is going to be going away soon. But or like Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you use to listen to your podcasts, and if possible, leave us a rating or review. It helps us to know how we're doing, and it helps other people find our show. And if you really dig the show, you can consider subscribing to us here at twitch.tv/PhoenixStarRadio, where you get access to a number of subscriber-only emotes and badges. Or you can go as far as supporting us out on patreon.com/PhoenixDownRadio, like our benevolent overlord Rory Fenrir or our secret of Nevermore Ravenheart. All proceeds go towards growing the show, cover things like hosting costs, allow us to improve and upgrade our equipment, as well as do fun things like contests and giveaways. But any kind of support, whether it's likes, tweets, subs, follows, donations, whatever it is, it's always greatly appreciated because we really do enjoy interacting with you guys in the community. You can check out our backlog of podcasts by going out to our website, PhoenixDownRadio.com. If you have questions, suggestions, just want to say hi, you can email us at podcast@PhoenixDownRadio.com. Like I said, join us live when we go do these podcasts every other week by coming to twitch.tv/PhoenixDownRadio. And we do put the VODs up on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PhoenixDownRadio. Again, a reminder, we will not have an episode in 2 weeks on February 25th. So we will not have anything new then, but we'll be back 2 weeks after that to finish up on our Final Fantasy 13 soundtrack. So look forward to that. Seyrr, any shout outs?
Oh, so big shout out to my friend Sophia Dershell on Hyperion, who made a generous offer and then several prods and occasionally a couple butt kickings to get together the materials for which they then crafted me full gathering and crafting sets.
Ooh, nice.
Which are now mostly materia. So if you need carrot pudding, just don't ask me to make like 600 of them, but I will make the carrot pudding. God, that's such pudding way bait. Oh my god, like if you haven't done the Valention's event, they have the usual, you get to talk with people a bit afterwards, and one of the people who talks about their love is Pudding Way.
Pudding!
For those who have reached the requisite quest completion. God, anyways, I'm sidetracked. So big thanks to Sophia for that. Also for encouraging me to keep up with my daily frontline. We are nowhere near the bit where you need to do the last minute run to try to get the series things, and I'm already at series rank 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 1 daily frontlines. Just do the duty roulette. You get a fuck ton of XP or you get a bunch of tomestones, and it adds up very quickly. And it turns out I like PvP now.
Seyrr's gonna become a PvP master.
Oh my god, I will actually talk with you about strategy if you're struggling with it. There's so much new. I got Battle High 5 for the first time a week or two back, and it was so nice. I felt like a god. I actually got it twice, and one of them I kept it until the end of the match.
Ooh.
The other one was the first time, and I overextended myself. Oh, but so yes, very big shout out to Sophia. Love doing stuff with you. It's great to hang out and chat. Yeah, thank you for keeping me going on this. You can find me on Twitter at FF14Seyrr. That's FFXIV I don't really use that much at this point, so your best bet is going to be to join the Phoenix Down Radio Discord, especially given that we're going to be off the air for a little bit. I would love to chat with all of you and keep up with things there, since it's going to be a bit before I get to see you again properly.
And of course, Pinion Bot had to be a good bot and linked the Discord as you were talking about it, so.
Good bot. You can also find me on Hyperion. Lately, I found myself just like kind of staring out at things in what's the thing? You go down from Stomazane, the Aetioscope. It's pretty down there. There's a giant floating castle that's probably going to fuck up our shit in the next major patch. But before then, it's pretty down there.
Fair enough. As always, I want to shout out Seyrr. Thank you so much for putting in a lot of hard work for this episode. I actually did lean very hard on Seyrr for this one because I know how much he wanted to talk about the storyline and the MSQ stuff, and how bad I was at getting it done. So thank you so much for making the show continue to look good.
You're welcome. This patch was such a this hit everything I wanted.
It was good stuff. Shout out to Talaz. for doing what he's doing, and he's unfortunately unable to join us for a little bit while he's working on his own big project, which is happening kind of at the same time as we normally do this. So I hope everything goes well with that, but I hope we can see you soon, because it's nice having your voice in on these shows as well, because I like having
it's an exciting opportunity. It's an exciting opportunity having to deal with a lot of time zone stuff, so understandable there, but looking forward to seeing you soon, man.
And shout out to everybody who's joining us here live at Twitch, or anybody who's listening out on the podcast. You're the reason we're doing this. We hope you're enjoying our inane ramblings and such, and just having fun hanging out with us, because it's a good time to put this out for you. Technically, I am also on Twitter, but I don't use that trash fire much anymore. So it is literally best, if you want to talk with us, hit us up on Discord. It is the fastest way to get us in touch with us. And it's a lot more fun there, because we can control the message that goes out. We don't have to worry about a whole bunch of other crap with it. We try and keep it light and enjoyable.
I'm just saying there's never been a promoted tweet on our Discord.
Well, we have promoted messages. I've pinned messages before.
Well, yes, but very few of those are about the great taste of Snickers or about how you can get a smooth shave on your balls.
Hey,
I mean,
don't diss Manscaped, all right? Hashtag not a sponsor. Please sponsor us.
I kind of want to say something about that now, just for the lulz, but that's not really been a thing before for us, anyways.
Anyway, like I said, I am out at PHXDN_KLAUSS. If you really do want to find me out there for however much longer I keep that account, I don't know. Like I said, Twitter is just an absolute dumpster fire. I'm not a huge fan of it anymore. But
even if there's not a lot of bad stuff happening, there's not really much good stuff either.
No, it's really changed over the last year, and I really haven't enjoyed it. So
a lot of people got the hell out of Dodge.
Yep, I have not yet joined into Mastodon yet, or any of the other alternate social networks that have been jumping up. But
honestly, social media is kind of terrible, and I encourage people to not overindulge in it.
Just social,
except for ours.
Yeah,
except for ours.
Find your people. And just enjoy yourself. That's the best thing that I can say. And for those of you who join us in our social media, in our Discord, we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. We hope to continue to see you there, and make it as a fun of a place to explore your love for Final Fantasy as it is for us. So thank you very much. Anyway, for my co-host Seyrr Tomono, I am Klaus Nightbringer, wishing everybody a wonderful evening. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you in 1 month for the next episode, and until then, take care.
Phoenix Down Radio is a production of PhoenixDownRadio.com and Illusion Productions. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square Enix. In-game content for Phoenix Down Radio is the copyright of Square Enix. Opening music for Phoenix Down Radio is provided by Guilty Gear Rock You. Check out the Metal Chocobo theme cover and many other music videos at youtube.com/Guilty Gear Rock You. Closing music for this episode is provided by Guitar Wanker 90. Please check out their full version of Matoya's Cave and other rock video game covers at youtube.com/Guitar Wanker 90. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of Phoenix Down Radio and its hosts and do not reflect the views of Square Enix.